What is the measure of a life? This is a program about one man's life, what he has stood for, his gains and losses, the controversies that have surrounded him, his driving force. What is the measure of the life of Frank Zeidler, a man of Milwaukee, a man with a sense of fairness?
If there's a common thread that has motivated me throughout, it's a sense of fairness toward others and a sense of seeing to it that they had justice. Now, where that comes from, I don't know. I am still very much concerned about lack of fairness, about the manipulation of people, about taking advantage of people who aren't as smart as others, about the intellectuals dominating the non-intellectuals, about the wealthy dominating the poor. At the same time, I have a greater appreciation of the complexities of human life, and that sometimes the idea of injustice is not precisely as I perceive it.
Frank Zeidler was born in Milwaukee in 1912. His father was a barber, his mother a housewife. Of his two brothers, Clem became president of a Lutheran synod and later president of a theological seminary. Carl was elected mayor of Milwaukee in 1940. Carl was a popular figure, conservative, politically ambitious. In mid-term, as war sentiment mounted, he joined the Navy. Carl Zeidler was lost at sea off the coast of South Africa in November of 1942. By this time, Frank had held various jobs, including farmhand and surveyor. He and Agnes Reinke were married in 1939, and he had developed an insatiable thirst for knowledge on a wide range of topics. He has at least 80 university correspondence course credits and has received 2 honorary doctorates, but does not possess a college degree.
After high school, I did a lot of reading about the world events, particularly at the 35th Street Branch Library of the Milwaukee Public Library. And there I came across the writings of Norman Thomas, DeVere Allen, Kirby Page, and Harry Zeidler, who were socialists and were anti-war. When I was a secretary of the 35th Street Advancement Association, I came to know Owen M.J. Baird, who was a machinist at the Milwaukee Road shops, a very devout Methodist, who was also a socialist. I found that his kind of ideas and mine were very similar, and so I joined the 16th Ward branch of the Socialist Party at the age of 20. I happened to be basically a democratic socialist. That is, I believe that cooperation between people leads to a higher level of achievement than competition between them.
Through the late 30s and 40s, Zeidler became increasingly active in the Socialist Party, absorbing party principles and running for office. He was elected to the Milwaukee School Board in 1941 and ran for governor in 1942 and mayor in 1944, both on the socialist ticket. In 1947, Frank Zeidler was instrumental in the establishment of the Municipal Enterprise Committee and would run for mayor under its banner. Among the Milwaukee mayoral candidates in the 1948 primary was Henry W. Meyer, chairman of the New Milwaukee Committee. According to the Milwaukee Journal, Mr. Meyer opened a fiery campaign. He said,
"This is a declaration of war. War against the crossbreed Common Council, a crossbreed of drifting dunces and bumbling buzzards. We can't be stopped. The City Hall is an old haunted house, inhabited by ghouls, ghosts, bats, bugs, and mice for 100 years.
The general election, however, found Frank Zeidler and Henry Royce in opposition. The campaign had a liberal tone, with both candidates offering proposals for housing, planning, traffic, and utility control. But an overriding point of contention was Frank Zeidler's socialism.
According to a report of a radio debate, Henry Royce said, "My opponent's socialism is the authentic Karl Marx variety. He thinks the city ought to be running the corner grocery store." Frank Zeidler replied,
"Emphatically not. The corner grocery store is a business that is making a proper showing. The private individuals I refer to are those like the gas company, the transport company, and low-cost public housing. These have not made a showing to meet the public need. I am a democratic socialist who believes that freedom and liberty are important to all individuals and that public ownership and socialist controls are sometimes necessary to achieve the greatest freedom and greatest liberty for people.
Dear Frank, congratulations. The people have chosen you to do a big job. May God always give you strength and courage to do the right. Uncle Andy, Aunt Mabel, and Robert.
Congratulations to you and Municipal Enterprise Committee. William Osborne Hart, State Chairman, Socialist Party.
The election tally: 125,000 votes for Frank Zeidler, 97,000 for Henry Royce.
From Milwaukee, congratulations, Frank, on your magnificent victory. Milton McGuire, Alderman, 3rd Ward.
Frank, never forget during the years that you may serve our city as mayor that it was not the cream of society that put you in office, but the people. Do not lose the common touch. I fervently hope that you will always remain their choice and that you will not succumb to the blandishments of power-seeking, selfish, and undeserving groups and individuals. Joseph B. Swiderski, Attorney at Law.
The ethical aspect of public office is always before a person. And when I look back, I don't think of any time that I compromised my position, perhaps. Sometimes I seem bullheaded about a position, but I felt I shouldn't compromise a position, such as on housing, on race relations, on equality of individuals, or also on my belief that there were things that the government should do, which private interest was not doing.
Arthur Solstein was administrative secretary to Frank Zeidler during part of his tenure as mayor.
He felt his positions so strongly, they were so thoroughly reasoned, that it was difficult for him sometimes to understand why someone else couldn't see it his way, though he knew other people had other views and held them just as deeply. Interesting play of understanding and trying to understand.
Because of my pressing for public housing to be carried on by the public, because of other activities, one of the newspapers in town for about 3 weeks in editorials on the front page charged me with being a communist. And finally I had to say that either you stop that or I'll bring suit against you in the process. And that's a real ethical thing.
Letters received by Mayor Zeidler.
The National League is happy to welcome the progressive Midwest city of Milwaukee to the major leagues. The transfer of the Braves to Milwaukee is a tribute to your city.
Dear Mayor, the communists are creeping and the people of this country are being taxed to death. The common working man does not know what way to turn anymore.
If your successor is as inept and lacking in leadership abilities as you have been, I will sell my home and move to one of the nearby suburbs.
May I respectfully suggest that you look into the traffic problem on West North Avenue between 35th Street and 60th Street?
Dear Mr. Zeidler, I am shocked to hear of such a character as Sally Rand performing at the lakefront. In my opinion, men here in Milwaukee do not need to be enticed by any fan dancer.
Honorable Mayor, I have a gripe. Is it true that the city wishes to reduce the amount of taverns, or is this just a lot of talk? Because I have a neighbor that now runs the tavern that his adopted mother ran, but she died. This fellow has quite a police record, including making trouble to the extent that a divorce took place on his account in the tavern of the husband of the woman he now says is his wife.
When is something going to be done about the acoustics in the arena?
I think it's unfair not to let the children of Milwaukee shoot caps when all over the rest of the state they can. Glenn Smith, age 9.
Dear Glenn, it was certainly very honest of you to write to me directly, letting me know how you feel about the use of cap pistols. I hope you will understand, Glenn, that the city of Milwaukee has passed the ordinance to protect boys like you, not to be unfair to them. Sincerely yours, Frank P. Zeidler.
Well, my young children at that time went to the public school. They weren't particularly singled out, except later on in the case of the race problem. Once in a while they would, one or two of them would be faulted on the school grounds for the fact that black people were appearing in the city or appearing in the schools. Got a pretty good impression of things political and how things work. And as I talk to them now when they're older, I see that they absorbed a lot, even as young people, of how society works, what things are like. They also developed their own independent frame of mind. During my 3 terms of mayor, I more than doubled the size of the city to provide industrial space and living space for the people. Secondly, I carried on perhaps the most massive public works program in rebuilding the city, rebuilding fire stations, providing libraries, museums, housing, paving streets, equipping the fire department, equipping the municipal service department. That has occurred in the history of the city of Milwaukee. That took a great deal. And thirdly, I was very much concerned about the social problems of the city of Milwaukee. The making of the city of Milwaukee a fit place for people to live, especially the working people. And of these types of problems, of course, the most severe one was a problem of racial relations, and I worked on that very hard. With not a little success. I did have some success with that aspect of the program. Those would mark a few of the things I did. Let me add one further thing. I very heavily stressed cultural things, such as creating a television station, building a new museum, a new library, several branch libraries, working with the cultural and ethnic groups of the city, so that there was an esprit de corps, so to speak, of Milwaukeeans, where they all felt part of the same community.
Dear sir, I want to make a protest against my being fired by one of your major firms. I was accused of being a communist, a drunkard, a pervert, and many other things. But I took this because of falling in love with a punch press operator, Roseanne.
His Honor, Mayor Zeidler. For 5 years, we have tried to do something about the neighbors' chickens. This is not a neighborly fight, believe me. Because of these chickens, our garage is being eaten by rats.
You men in government are representing the relief, labor, and minority pressure groups, and not the taxpayer. He gets shoddy treatment and is made to flee to the outskirts. Signed, the vanishing taxpayer.
I certainly enjoyed myself in the good city of Milwaukee, and I appreciated your hospitality. Sincerely yours, Harry Truman.
Mr. James Kirchhoff, basement flooded once and needs pumped today.
Dear Mayor Zeidler, I want to express my warm appreciation for your service on the United States National Commission for UNESCO. Christian A. Herter.
Mrs. Josephine Matashevsky, basement flooded, water and ash pit of furnace.
Dear Mayor Zeidler, it was a good visit with you in your office. All the best to you and your co-workers. Carl Sandberg.
Mr. Ray Podzdursky, water backing up through drain.
I want to send you just a word of thanks for sending to me a copy of Macbeth, which you have adapted and clarified in modern English. I'm most happy to have had the opportunity to read this. Sincerely, John F. Kennedy.
There won't be any memorials to your memory when your service is finished, but they might put one of your Shakespeare translations in the public library, where it will collect dust on the shelves just like you did all your days in the city hall. A fitting tribute to a do-nothing mayor.
It occurred to me that it would be fun to rewrite Shakespeare in Middle Western English. Shakespeare, you know, is played currently, I suppose, in many countries in the world because it's in the vernacular of those countries. The Shakespearean English is not the vernacular of the Middle West. So I tried my hand at Macbeth, and I tried my hand at Hamlet and Midsummer's Night's Dream and Julius Caesar. This play in 1959 was put on by the Milwaukee Players under Robert Friedel and played for a week. And the critics came to scoff, but the audience cheered and applauded because that was the first time they understood the plot of what was going on. And it's fun to read. It's fun to take one of these to a party and give everybody a part, and then they can read it and play with it.
Mayor Zeidler's life also included the pursuit of correspondence courses and hobbies of archaeology and astronomy. But the office of mayor was not without tension as the city grew and the pressure of change accelerated.
The office of mayor has a certain amount of strain simply because one is in the public eye one way a mayor can get away from this is by keeping himself out of the public eye and avoiding problems, which I did not do. The newspapers constantly were on my heels to try to get something on me because I was a socialist and therefore to destroy me. So that was a kind of a continual test.
Dear Mayor Zeidler, I want to say dear friend Frank, just to let you know that I was shocked, as many thousands of Milwaukeeans were, by your announcement that you will not be a candidate for mayor of the city of Milwaukee in 1960. The only reason that I can be in accord with you on this matter is your health.
Perhaps you may still change your mind. I pray that you do. Only a small minority caused you heartache, I'm sure. The great majority love and respect you greatly.
It was not only the physical strain that determined me not to stand again. I think that 12 years in one public elected office of major importance is enough for an individual, and it is wholesome for the public to have a change. Moreover, I felt myself spoiling for a fight with the liquor and tavern industry over the social disorders they created, with the suburbs over planning, with the realtors over creating a Negro ghetto in the center of Milwaukee, with the state government, and with the motor vehicle owners over taxation. Above all, I felt a need to work for world peace on a level and plane higher than city government.
Dear Mayor Zeidler, I deeply regret that I didn't know of the civic salute that was held in your honor. I would have been there, for I have been a sincere admirer of you personally and the fine leadership you have given the city of Milwaukee. Sincerely, Angus McDougall.
From the Madison Capital Times, November 1959.
Milwaukee has had a mayor for the past 12 years who is second to none in the nation in his understanding of municipal problems and his devotion to public service. He's been a public servant across whose integrity not the slightest shadow has ever moved. There have been no special privileges, no favorite fat cats lapping up at the milk at City Hall. This is not to say that Zeidler has not been controversial. The mere fact that he's been a socialist and a humanitarian in his outlook was sufficient to guarantee a constant attack against him. It's curious, isn't it, that Milwaukee can tie itself into hysterical knots over somebody who hits a home run in a baseball game, but it has nothing more than a polite yawn for the retirement of a man who has served it with great skill and dedication for more than a decade of its history.
No, I don't regret that I didn't run in 1960. I never felt that I was unappreciated, although I recognize that I had a lot of enemies over the issues that I stood for. But I also felt that there were a lot of other things to enjoy in life besides being the mayor of the city of Milwaukee. I had a fine experience as a director of the Wisconsin Department of Resource Development. I did some work for the Ford Foundation. I worked in a couple of the institutions of higher education here. And all in all, I had a very enjoyable experience afterward that fully compensated for not being in the office of mayor. I felt a great sense of disappointment in the type of government that followed me. I had hoped that there would be at least some progressive Democrats, and what happened is that Milwaukee reverted to the old Rose type of Democrat that ran the city government. The cities are in danger of destruction now from military weapons, and hundreds of millions of people can be destroyed. However, if we can escape that, then the cities are in danger from the other aspects of technology which permit the rich and the wealthy to escape to the suburbs and to control the cities from their suburban communities without dealing with any of the essential problems of the cities. The cities are becoming the concentrations of the poor, the handicapped, those that are unable to meet the competition of life. Now, in the future, the cities ought to be regarded as places for the concentration of people that need services, for the advancement of the sciences, for the advancement of technology, which will deal with the frontiers of ignorance and of fear and of war and all of the problems that face society. Now, that's where I think municipal officials ought to be addressing themselves. Unfortunately, the people in the cities are not being educated. The role of a mayor above everything else, the role of an alderman, is to educate his constituents, not to wait to see what they think, but to tell them what's coming and to educate them and prepare them so they can support correct legislation.
September 1975, Milwaukee. The Socialist Party USA has chosen former Milwaukee Mayor Frank P. Zeidler as its 1976 presidential nominee under a banner inherited from Eugene Debs and Norman Thomas. The party calls itself the legitimate heir of the Socialist Party, which has not fielded a White House candidate since 1956. Zeidler, 62, is chairman of the party, which he helped reorganize a few years ago.
The election results of 1976 were less than I had expected. I thought I would get a larger vote in the Milwaukee area. Some 4,000 votes were recorded here. I thought I might get as many as 20,000 votes based on my past experience. However, nationally, I was very pleased. We got on the ballot in 7 or 8 states. We got a fairly good opportunity to express our viewpoints, got a lot of publicity for our ideas, and it was really a rewarding experience.
Any judgment about the success of Frank Zeidler's life must be tentative because his life continues. He remains vital, an influence and presence in Milwaukee. His interests are still wide-ranging. He participates in Milwaukee's interfaith movement, new political coalitions, the peace movement, his neighborhood organization. He is in demand as a speaker, leader, participant. And though he grapples with great issues, he also affects change in small ways, often through friendships and associations built over a lifetime of service. Frank Zeidler has made a choice about the direction and purpose of his life. This choice is an act of courage. It is a choice which occurred many years ago. It is a choice which is repeated today. Frank Zeidler continues to lead his life motivated by a sense of fairness.